Tempo Storm are well on their way to a clean 3-0 victory over Even in Death. Just have one more game to finish out the series and finish out the weekend for both of these teams.
This weekend, I turn my head really sharply, it turns out
so
there.
Sharp.
You know, weebles wobble, but they don't fall down. That's what we experienced today. You know, this weekend we got some, this all a part to it has only gotten more surprising, I feel like, the results. It did feel like we stabilized here in day number 3. Things have gone according to plan, but my goodness, it has been an absolute doozy, and I'm only wondering, what does week 5 have in store? I feel like we have enough locked down that it can't get that crazy. This is the peak. You know, we're going to plateau from here, but I feel like just somehow it's been so consistently crazy, it is naive for me to assume that it will die down.
I can say that Tempo definitely needs this win to maintain their spot in standings, because next weekend they play Freedom, and Freedom have shown to be a difficult opponent for just about everybody. I really wish we could get Freedom versus Roll20, but we had that at the beginning of the part. This next battleground, though, for Game 3 may be the last. If Even in Death can't take a victory, instead of picking Sky Temple, they've chosen Tomb of the Spider Queen. What's up with that?
I don't honestly know here. Even in Death, the fact that they are willing to walk away. And I mean, again, we started this series talking about their map priorities, that this is among their top 3, but it does seem strange to not go to their most successful map, their highest priority map, against Tempo Storm, a team that isn't necessarily known for their team fighting either. It seems to play to the strengths of EID and to the weaknesses of Tempo Storm enough to go into it, and they're not willing to take us there.
I would say at this point, knowing that Tempo Storm has played Medivh on Tomb of the Spider Queen before, it's probably time for a Medivh ban.
It's probably about darn time. I agree with you. Ariel's removed for Tempo Storm, not wanting to deal with any opportunity of those double supports. Oh, I mean, that's not true. It's still within the realm of possibilities. Ariel is not the staple, but it shows interest in the support realm. What do we see for EID? Do they end up going with themselves a Tassadar? Do they want to remove the Medivh? They go with the Medivh.
Does leave Tassadar up now for Tempo Storm. Abathur too, but definitely not Tempo Storm's Abathur battleground of choice.
Probably an Uther or a Rhaegar if we're going to see the double support from them. Rhaegar for the wave player, Uther for just having the, you know, awesome double support synergy.
What about Malthael here? Both of these teams have a lot of focus on him. Oh, but there's ETC too.
Going with the ETC here, not into the Tassadar. Even though it is a map where Tassadar can get value out of that wave clear, I'm happy to see Tassadar not a staple as that first pick across the board. But it is surprising on a map like Tomb. Again, that's talking about when and when he shouldn't be. It's like when you can get value out of the wave clear, he really rises in power. So we'll see if Even in Death want to pick it up. He's not a must-have by any means in the meta, but he's pretty darn good. If we what's up?
I was going to say, what is must-have for Even in Death here?
I mean, I think a support is a must. Rhaegar for the wave clear if you want to play it safe. I do feel like they have to go in that direction with the Ariel ban on the side of Tempo. If they're going to put any concentration into those, I don't want to be bullied away into a tier 2 support in the current meta, because there aren't very good. The difference between tier 1 and tier 2 supports are far different than it's almost ever been. And because of that, I would like to see them try and avoid getting kind of shoved off into, again, those lower tiers. We'll see.
With ECC already taken, I'm wondering if they feel like they need their warrior. Looks like no. Malthael Greymane.
All right.
Good damage set up for them there.
See how much emphasis Tempo wants to go into that now. Even in Death, not going to the supports if Tempo actually thinks it's worth the bans or not. What else? With the Malthael picked up, who do we want to see as the solo?
Either Uther or Rhaegar, not as the solo, but for ETC.
Can I get me a Leo? I mean, am I asking for a lot to just one Leoric in North America?
Apparently it's too much.
It's apparently.
You had one, you had a Cure.
Oh, you're right. Well,
and then
Cure,
you had a second, because Even in Death played it the next game.
You're right, we did get 2. Can I get another one? Is that too much? Is that too much to ask
Leos,
for 3?
Way too much.
It's just the prevalence of him.
How
I mean,
dare you?
It seems that it's a little bit low, and you know, I'd just like to see him come out here in North America. Especially for Tempo, I feel like it's a prime position to be able to do that. You know, maybe flex a bit, 2 games up here over Even in Death. He used to accent this map, and I mean, he's still pretty darn good.
Caldo likes to talk about the damage reduction of Leoric, his capabilities there, and maybe want to reduce some damage of Malthael and Greymane, but not here, not today. Dahaka still for Fury and Rhaegar.
Having that Rhaegar for the wave clear with ETC is going to be very, very effective. So already a very established 4-man, even though we only have 2 of them, and a dominant soul laner for Tempo, but it's into the Malthael, not as successful as you traditionally would see. So even Death's got to be thankful that at least they're winning 1/3 of the map. Now they've got to find a way to recover into the laning situation. I'm going to be honest, I am a little bit timid on their ability to make up for their wave clear with the Rhaegar already consumed on the other side of the table. And the Greymane, he's decent in that wave clear avenue, but not enough. They need something else to make up for it. And I don't think going into the support nor any other traditional warriors are going to make up for that.
We've seen Even in Death be willing to play Gul'dan on Tomb.
And if they pick a Gul'dan with the Tormented Souls, we've seen what that can do in the past. Tormented Souls Horrify is... It's a smidge awkward, you know, not as awkward as Sound Barrier and Sanctification may be, but it's probably more awkward because Tormented Souls and they all just walk away. Whereas at least with Sanct, you're all clumped and you're beefy and healthy. It's just kind of like, whoops. If they don't go for the Gul'dan, though, where else do they make up for that wave clear, right? And that's where it starts going down the list to not so meta heroes, and for good reason.
Yeah, my thought is they go back into a wave clear support, getting either Malfurion or Stukov. Stukov on Tomb of the Spider Queen. We see a fair amount. It seems to be one of his top battlegrounds. So there's a possibility there, but that doesn't provide any sort of help. You don't have a cleanse to deal with drags. You don't have a cleanse for helping against an ETC.
And ETC is, because he plays different than all other stun warriors, main warriors, he's the only one, well, other than Diablo, but Diablo's a little bit weird in how he plays, and he's not considered the staple. But unlike Murden, he gets in position he gets out of position to set up a kill, which is good because it's easy to punish, but it's also bad because then if you consider yourself as a vulnerable support, like things like that Stukov where we're talking about, you are body blocked to death. You have to find another way to be able to get around him, and if you don't have mobility or ways to get off of you with that secondary knockback, ETC is even better into those awkward supports than a traditional stun warrior is. I mean, I would never want to play a Stukov into him. Like, if I don't have the upper hand, I'm not initiating on you, and you're the one posturing around me, think about how hard it is to just get a single lurking arm or even feel comfortable standing still without knowing he's going to just push me into my whole team.
Well, Tassadar is the wave clear, so they may not have to Stukov now.
No, they don't have to.
And they won't get... I cannot believe that it's
Uther.
last pick Uther.
I cannot believe it's last pick Uther either.
It
because Uther would not be last pick, or because it didn't fit the composition, or even Death, or just a little bit of both?
Well, I think it fits with the Garrosh. I was saying more that we made it all the way to the 10th and final pick, and then it was Uther.
Yeah.
At the rate we've been going with supports in NA, but there it is. Garrosh, Uther. We've got Tassadar to help with the wave clear. Greymane there will be there too for the kill comp after the Garrosh Uther, and then Malthael holding his own in the soul lane. Maybe because there's a double global now for Tempo Storm, and their ability maybe to go in and cause a lot of problems for Malthael, and probably Homicidal playing that Malthael. We'll have to see on that. Yeah,
I do feel like this game is going to be pretty scary for Even in Death draft-wise. It's gotten a little bit dark, you know, unless Malthael has a very outstanding performance, like on another level. I don't really see them recovering throughout this game. The Tassadar direction that they moved into with the Uther, Tass Uther without a hyper carry to enable, always is kind of a little bit awkward because both of them are the effective health timing mixed with like how it helps your team. It just really kind of sets you back pretty hard into a team fight, and I don't see any heroic adjustments to make up for it, right? Sometimes when you get that, you could be like, well, what if you maybe Divine Storm and you can make up for that and like lock them down enough to where Archon can get the damage and overcome it? But there are so many just Tempo Storms okay with all these kind of situations that Even in Death here really needs to be proactive with the turn-ins if they're going to stand a chance.
And to do that, they need to get set up very well by having the support and Garrosh together. I want to see them not get separated this game. You got to have a strong support system of those two. Buddy system for Even in Death. Will it give them a win in the game? Let's find out. Game 3 between Tempo Storm and Even in Death, with Tempo Storm currently 2-0 of Even in Death as we go into Game 3.
We do see Psalm there over on the fall set because Cotton Luck is busting out that Chromie. And
Cattle playing Dahaka, Fury playing ETC.
So it's going to be still the...
Wait.
Yeah, still in flux. So we have the primary warrior, but... Man, that's interesting because now it's not a map where we see Fury able to go into a side lane like it did before, where at first we were like, you know, this makes sense for Tempo considering the map and how they played it out. Now it does show that Tempo themselves are in flux, that they aren't totally sold on the fact that Fury needs to be that offlaner, and they're just going to kind of bounce back and forth.
But it does seem the more that we see Even in Death, they're solidifying what we've been saying. Lutano's working for them. Even though they initially said they might have Homicidal being the warrior player, they've got Lutano there, and then Homicidal can still be flexing it out and playing the Malthael, which his Malthael, his Illidan, that's sort of what we became to respect from this team. There's a lot of different things from Even in Death that we respected as we saw them come into HGC in Phase 2, but homicidal plays on heroes like Illidan and Malthael, that was definitely one of the top things.
Yeah, it had to be the outstanding one for me. I felt like one of the few Malthaels, especially for kind of being a no-name player like Homicidal was getting into this all. First blood up on top.
Hello.
June delaying the inevitable there. Even in Death getting fights level 1 through 9, winning skirmishes, already really big signs for them because they cannot fill in the early laning phase if they're going to stand a chance here.
They're getting frisky. Lutano does take some damage immediately from Chromie. She drops down the Dragon's Breath. Homicidal's going to be rotating up to help out, and this does allow Even in Death to make sure that they're keeping Greymane, Uther, and the Garrosh together. Of course, Cattle starts to go back. Dodges how?
It's so funny how that interaction works. If you point and click your E on Uther while mounted up, and then he burrows underneath, the Uther just stops, stands still. It's kind of awkward.
It's just respect, like, there is no longer a dinosaur here. What happened? Like he's flabbergasted.
It's like playing
it's
like playing a peekaboo with a young child, you know? It's just their ability to understand the idea that something...
Object permanence?
Yeah, it just is not there.
Turns out today we learned Uther has no object permanence.
Yeah, you know who else might not have object permanence is going to be Tempo Storm here. Is Frozen X is not... Oh, wait! I was going to say he's here and now he's not, but turns out Hal's got the Frisbee. They're good to go.
What a save. What a save from Even in Death. They can continue to keep up the aggression that they have. They've got Tassadar helping out Homicidal, but it's all about that Garrosh-Uther combination. They are losing out on some of the tower shots, some of the push that Tempo Storm has, so it's up to Even in Death to make sure that they are getting those picks so that they can get the first turn in and start snowballing from there.
Yeah, they're doing a very good job so far. It's just, look at this cycling through mid as a 5-man. Very well done. Even getting themselves a Chromie kill. Tempo Storm here. Already 2 deaths down. They are constantly split as a 4-man. They're losing structures, losing drain on ammos. Even in Death is just flat out upset.
I would be too.
I mean, this is amazing. The fact that they're holding off into a Chromie composition, they're pushing into it, and they're getting kills over Tempo. I mean, for real. This is the exact opposite. This is not the draft that I thought we would see this out of them, this success. Where is this coming from?
Well, I mean, we've heard a lot about Even in Death before, right? We've just been waiting to see if it would happen, and maybe this is it. Maybe this is the first game that they take from Tempo Storm, and maybe start their own reverse sweep. There's been so many in North American HGC. Oh, but Caterpillar's trying to stop that right here, right now with a Frozen X kill.
Frozen
Can
X.
Hao do it again?
He's got disengaged.
Oh, I just can't believe it. That is so frustrating. Oh, we're all good.
Calculated. Frozen X twice in a row, man. Got the understanding there of Greymane, the armor in the Worgen form. But we've got 44 gems turned in for Even in Death, and that is the biggest deal here. Tempo Storm can buy all the time in the world. As long as they don't lose gems, they're totally okay with this laning situation. Whereas Even in Death needs to not only secure themselves the turn in, but they need to be getting a lot out of it. They have themselves, I mean, essentially a very poor sieging composition. Malthael, Uther, Garrosh, all terrible in that avenue. Whereas Tassadar, decent, and Greymane, pretty effective.
Some of the concern, though, for Even in Death is if they get this really early, how much they can do with that when some of the waves have been pushed pretty well against them from Tempo Storm.
Yeah.
But as long as they don't lose any kills, like they don't get panicked and lose kills trying to get that turn in, they need to be, as you said, effective with it. Hello?
Oh, that's we got a DC there. That makes a lot more sense. I was sitting there equally as questioned as you, but apparently nobody knows.
There we go.
Yeah, we figured it out. I was
you
like,
figured it out pretty quick.
I was just like,
Som, hello.
I was like, I don't know how else to commentate these, but that is almost intentionally feeding. Like, I can't even come up with an argument.
Yeah, like,
all right.
Ooh, I don't want to do that.
Yeah, it was like one of those ones where you're like, the only other justification you can flat out say is my mouse stopped working or I misclicked. Like,
Yeah.
that's about all she got. All right, so he's good. False hit bot has managed to survive. We got our pause. We'll let you guys know when Psalm gets back in here. But even in death, man, the fact that this game is even being slightly led by them is a huge story. And I think I've been talking about them getting the early turn, and you were talking about, oh, wait a minute, what if they don't want to? To be honest, I would like to say I think it is better for them to hold off on the turn-in. I just don't know if they can get away with it. Sometimes when I do kind of give that what the team should be aiming for, it's more of like considering what their opponent and how good their opponent is, the best chances are to snowball a game into their favor, and that's why I feel like they're going to need that over tempo, because they do have poor siege, which traditionally, when you have bad siege, I would rely on the scaling of my minions or my heroics. One of those two is how I make up for it, because if my kit innately cannot get kills on you levels 1 through 9, which if I didn't get the turn-in, I probably can't, then that means I have to make up for it post 10 with my heroics and deter that turn-in. So,
well, what we know off of the turn-in is that one of the 3 lanes is drained of ammo. So it's just how much they can get done with that. And if you turn in earlier on, it's harder to snowball because you don't have the gems to get the secondary turn-in. So yeah, it'd be really good. And they at least maybe get the experience spike, so if they could continue to get some more kills while they have heroics or really close to heroics. So maybe that is the best option for them, knowing that it does feel like they're on a timer, a teeter-totter for where things start to go wrong, where Tempo Storm starts to figure out the rotations that Even in Death are making and is able to stop losing picks to it.
Yeah, it is I think, again, the safer way to do that is worry about more into your heroics. It's just about the biggest thing then is you got to be like, well, can I stall tempo long enough? And if I give it over to tempo, do I lose too much in the experience department? And if you don't have siege, you also don't defend. I mean, it just works both ways, right? Which is why macro has to be snowballed so much into your favor. So you either go, I take the web weavers and have less siege in my opponent, poor defense, and risk all that lack of XP to then wait for the miracle later, or you just snowball it at the gates. And again, take what you know you can get versus what you think you can get every time, because it is, again, you should never make a decision with the assumption your opponent will give you something. And that is why I say snowball the game as fast as you can. It is going to be the safer direction. But again, it would be in their best interest to get their 10s, and I just don't know if they can.
Well, the defensive web weavers does provide an opportunity for them to get more picks with their Garrosh Uther. Watching and taking down the towers fast the gate then sets up for them to maybe be able to get one of those pulls and hits, and then that does give more gems, gives more ability to take down more structures. So that is a secondary benefit of them trying to get that earlier turn-in, is it does give more opportunities for them to try to get picks on Tempo Storm. But we're just waiting for Som to get back into the game. That Falstad death would have been really bad for Tempo Storm because he's carrying so many gems.
Yeah, he's got 18 in his hands currently and had a few more. I'm just looking at some of the quest talents, if we have anybody standing out too much. Everybody's kind of doing their own thing. Flash build just came online. Nobody's got anything outstanding here, so it's just waiting for the game to get back into it.
And it is ready.
Oh, conveniently, we
You're
got it good to go.
The Prophet Dread.
I am Medivh. See, I am the Medivh. I'm ready to become the problem here. Lutano, 7 gems in his hand. He had enough for the turn-in. Good delay from the Chromie on the side of Tempo Storm as they get their level 7 talents.
Speaking of Chromie has been chilling out in lane, doesn't quite have the Prismaticism amount of stacks. He's sitting at 17 right now to Sandblast.
It's according to what I believe we had for Prismaticism, to give you guys an idea of like what level this is below 50% of what Prismaticism had. Prismaticism also had a better laning situation, a better map. Like, that's not a play level, but to give you guys an idea of the power, this is about half of what we saw from Prismaticism.
Well, here it is. Even in Death gets the first Web Weaver phase of the game, and they're doing their best to push all the waves up to towers. We know that the mid is the most drained of those towers. And Even in Death is going to set up. They've got Lutano, Hal right behind. See if they can get some picks on the members of Tempo Storm during this time. Hammer of Justice hits. It's Caterpillar there. He is fairly tanky, using his essence to heal back up.
Really interesting choice that they decided to collapse up and towards top, and all of Tempo Storm managed to match them. This is a huge advantage for Even in Death here. This is a pretty poor decision making on the side of Tempo Storm to defend. The fact that they have pretty good anti-siege and that all of them had to answer towards top. It's a free push up on mid, and middle is the most effective lane on Tomb of the Spider Queen, which is why most teams go mid with the first Web Weaver phase. Gilly, this is, I mean, outstanding for Even in Death's odds in this game. This Web Weaver phase went from hopefully it's good to it is just dominating, and it maybe shouldn't have been.
Yeah, mid was the one with the towers drained, so it was going to be the easiest to deal damage. Tempo Storm all going up, and then Even in Death just surreptitiously sending Tassadar and Malthael there. Now they find a Som, catch him out, and this is 31 gems. 31 gems. Nobody is in position at all for Tempo Storm to pick those up. Those are gone.
And a full level behind, too. Gilly, this is a legitimately perfect case for Even in Death. They are now it's like, how does Tempo come back from this? This is a very big setback here. If they get this turn in and Tempo can be successful with this turn in, again, they have a better siege. It is likely they will be able to be successful with it. I expect Tempo Storm to restore the balance, but if they are unable to really dominate the same way Even in Death was for that Webweaver phase, I do feel like this is out of control of Tempo.
Strap in, everybody, because for Tempo Storm, it's going to be a long haul to get back to this game. Cleanse gets forced to get Caterpillar back. Homicidal perfectly catches Cattle and jumps right on in with his Tormented Souls. And the focus is Caterpillar and this Tahaka. 11 gems, not nearly as much as 31, but it still hurts Tempo Storm to lose over 40 gems before they can get heroic abilities.
It should be noted, though, Even in Death did make a pretty big mistake by committing 4 heroics to that. Mainly 3 because of how long they are, or maybe 2.5 if you consider Garrosh in the short. But it is still a big setback. There is no reason to burn Tormented Souls and Archon for that kill. It was very likely to go down no matter what. And it's oftentimes when a team, oh, wait a minute here. Cattle got the drag on the Frozen X. Good into the Frey use. Lutano's not going to aggress any farther, but Fury might get the punishment now as they have their heroics. Power slide in.
He used Indomitable. Now Fury's the one in trouble. Lutano will happily keep him here with the
my.
taunt. Frozen X follows up with the Cursed Bullet.
He's dead.
Fury dies to the tower.
Wow, the plays. Lutano there. Talk about the veteran versus the new blood here in North America. The 1v1 goes over to new blood.
And right behind that, Red Webweavers for the second turn-in phase for Even in Death. We're seeing a lot more now, maybe why Even in Death chose this battleground, because this is a pretty early game for Even in Death. Double Webweaver turn-ins, picks to take out 40 gems from Tempo Storm, 5 kills to 0 on Tempo.
I want to see what they do after this Webweaver phase. That, for me, is really going to show the strength of Even in Death. They'll have a 13 talent here, but they'll be out of reach for a major objective for some time. So are they willing to be confident enough to bust out a boss this early on a map like Tomb, risk that win condition, or are they going to play it slow, stall it out, manipulate the map around this double global, and more importantly, a turn-in capable team like Tempo Storm? It seems like a big risk, but with how effective they have played this early game, I don't know if I have the right to doubt them any further. Nice bait onto that burrow. Cattle gets flipped back, and he's just dead.
Yikaruskis, man. You've got the taunt into Cursed Bullet. There was no way he was getting out of that. Now Fury gets pulled back in. Even in Death is dominating over Tempo Storm in Game 3. They had some waffling, figuring out what they wanted to do after taking out the fort here in the top, but going back in, knowing they have kill pressure, knowing that they could bring down these keep towers. They've got 13 so far ahead. 2-level lead over Tempo Storm as the Webweaver falls.
That was huge that Even in Death was able to take out that keep front wall while a member was dead, because if they stood around for a second longer, that was going to be a flight gust dream for Tempo Storm. But they quickly rotate down, realizing Falsehead may be trying to get that bottom turn in. They're going to go ahead and goaltend and get a flat invade over Night Camp. Look at this aggression. Absolutely love this from Even in Death. Even if it's just a scout, they're getting any ounce of information to understand the transitions of Tempo Storm, and they're not letting go of this lead that they managed to obtain, which is not something you would expect from a team sitting at the bottom in North America. More importantly, against Tempo 2 games down. This is brilliant from them.
Yeah, and that's sometimes even been a problem for Even in Death before in the games where they do get ahead in the early game, is figuring out how to continue that lead. Now they have lost a Webweaver phase. Tempo Storm finally manages to turn in gems to get the Webweavers, but taking down the fort in the bottom, there's no forts left for Tempo Storm. And that sets things up for Even in Death later in this game for more keep pressure with Mercenaries and for future Webweavers.
And when it comes to how much Even in Death is able to get over these windows, hold up here, they're going to get a full flank. Lutano didn't hit the time trap, slowing, not throwing Sands, slowing Sands.
That's what Cawthon was doing, being scared away from Lutano. I'm going to throw out some Sands and I hope I don't die.
Yeah, throwing out the Sands there. He did buy the peel, though. Level 15 will be picked up for Even in Death, and Tempo needs to force a fight with these Webweavers. They're just kind of letting them be cleared.
Here's the fight. Fury gets hit by the stun of Hao. Damage to Fury is so good for the team because it dissuades him from jumping in and turning this entire game around with a money mosh pit.
And that was a situation where Even in Death just won that skirmish 3 versus 4. I mean, they're just flat out winning. Cattle, good use there of the Brashta. He's able to make it out there. But Even in Death, or excuse me, but Tempo Storm just got that Webweaver phase. They know that this fight pre-16 is a must for themselves. Unless they're really relying on the lack of turning capabilities for Even in Death here. Even in Death has a choice to make. Are they going to maybe overreact and force a turn-in pre-16, which Tempo Storm, they need this fight, or are they in fact going to stall it out and risk giving Tempo the turn-in? It looks like they're willing to take the fight.
Drag connects on Lutano. Some split focus between Cattle and Fury. But even in death, pulling members back. As I say that, it's the pull
Mosh.
in on Divine Shield. But Garrosh was Divine Shielded from that. He just pulls him right out of it. Homicidal, though, does not survive.
Tormented Souls out too late, and now Sandblast dropping down, getting a lot of damage. June is the focus. He is the first to drop. Gus comes out too late from Psalm. Tempo Storm losing their support sets this to an even trade, and now what was a very, very unfortunate circumstance for Even in Death is even footing.
Fury's gotta be cautious. He's at 14 to the 16 of Even in Death, but they really don't want to deal with another Even in Death turn-in. Cattle finds a drag on Lutano, but Lutano will say hello right back.
That was the one window where Even in Death took a game-losing risk. I mean, that level of risk was colossal, and the fact that Tempo was unable to remain successful there, that at least they went even. That was all they had to do. And now they're going to get this Web Weaver phase with the 16 talent tier. No forts available after that beautiful punish and rotation at the 13 talent tier. And now we're going to see what Even in Death can do. This should be at least a half keep from them. And if they fail to be able to, it should be a full keep, but it's going to be a slow, I'm probably going to have to say this again, a slow
How
siege.
slow, Dread?
You know, but they're focusing up on top. Okay, at least prepping the wave. And this is exactly what I was talking about before. See how top and mid are applying pressure at the exact same time? This is a must for Even in Death. Oh, but they're going to go top.
Yeah, that's where they did take the towers down. They really want to protect this Web Weaver. Slowing Sands. It's going to make life difficult for Even in Death as they push through and when they want to retreat after this.
If Fawcett gets them to 16, again, this is such a, easy kill potential if he just flies past and Gus. So members of Even in Death need to be very, very efficient here. Dahaka's actually sacrificed the experience. Tempo Storm is all in defending without the 16 talent tier. They're going to wait for trickle-down experience.
There's nothing left here. Lutano gets pulled in. Gus after that, and they've got the slowing Sands. It's all down to if Lutano can stay alive using his armor, using the Divine Shield. He didn't have double up, but he didn't need it. There goes the drop of Dragon's Breath, the shield.
The shield, 40, 60,
Isolation.
75 armor. He's keeping himself alive. The mosh pit, the cleanse. Tempo Storm get the kill. There's the Ancestral and Homicidal. Wasted the Tormented Souls thanks to that mosh pit, but Even in Death, they find Fury.
30 gems down. Caterpillar will pick them up, but the slows from Tassadar are keeping him from retreating. Someone else has to get in for the gems, but it should not be Psalm. He is far too low.
June,
It's June.
he's body blocked.
Reaper's Mark, look at Homicidal.
And he goes down. The punishment here. Tempo Storm still got some life in them. Cawthon flinging out the sand, throwing everything he's got. And does the keep? It does. It goes down. Even in Death's got to say mission complete. Maybe not how they expected to get there, but they got there.
It was fairly slow. It took just about everything, but Even in Death takes down the first keep of the game. Now Tempo Storm has catapult pressure against them in the top lane.
This is the second time Tempo Storm has been down a little bit in experience with the double global, and that they're willing to transfer everybody to the objective, to the moment of pressure, rather than getting the experience nor dealing with that middle Web Weaver. This is a very, very interesting defense strategy from Tempo Storm throughout both Web Weaver phases.
Does it feel to you like they're waiting for Even in Death to make a mistake? Like they expect it?
It feels like they're trying to. Yeah,
That's what it says to me.
It does seem like that has got to be the case here. Tempo Storm is very much not trying to be proactive. They're just looking for that moment, but they're waiting for the mistake rather than just taking the one that they can force. Again, a decision made with the assumption of a misplay is a misplay in itself.
Tempo Storm has some Web Weavers to bring this game back in their favor. They've lost a keep, but not the game, and they haven't lost the 20s yet. This is a moment for the fight, but Caterpillar is not the fight that he wanted.
He has no adaptation either.
Done.
June's there. Cleanse has got to be dropped. So at least it was only a cleanse used for Tempo Storm to pull away from that. Something they may want if they get into a skirmish, because that has been a huge setup for Fury on those mosh pits.
Top 4 is saved. Bottom will not. It will go down. That gives some experience back to Tempo Storm, and they need it. They're still behind. They're still a level behind Even in Death, not being able to get any kills from this. They have to stay out here and look for an opportunity.
They're going to stand around, wait for it. We also have to be careful for Even in Death's ability to defend this top 4. It's so very low that Tempo doesn't have to necessarily respect the HP. They can quickly move on past. Again, a major Gus play from Psalm is where I really feel like if Tempo is going to turn this game, it's going to be there. So how do they make it happen? 55 gems to the 41. but half a level away from 20. Even in Death is going to have to take a fight before the 20 mark to stop these gems from being turned in. And by doing so, possibly risk this game. Power slide.
Lutano tosses in Caterpillar. Stun follow-up, tunneling claws.
Malthael's getting a flank from down below. Homicidal, you know he wants the fight.
They're making it work. They have not gotten their 20s yet.
They haven't
but
gotten the gems.
They haven't had to stop any turn-ins yet. It's just June who turns in 9.
They're down a gem. They don't have enough gems yet. They're literally 1 gem away, so they don't have to be concerned. Even if they get the turn-in, they've got the 20. They made the miracle happen. They have stalled it out. Now they can zone off tempo. They get the double goaltend, and this is even in Death's game to lose. This is a huge power spike for them.
How can they use it to their most effectiveness? They don't have the turn-in quite yet, but they have a lot of gems to that.
It's just make sure they goaltend both and then abuse the 20 window to get a turn-in and possibly feigning a boss, anything to make Tempo Storm overreact to a section of the map while they have a lethal Webweaver phase, and that they can essentially manipulate them to make it to the core for free. 14 more turned in, but again, not enough gems for Even in Death quite yet. Tempo Storm just rounded enough for themselves.
Really good for Lutano to get those gems away. Now he can be the guardian to allow others to finally turn in. Malthael is in the bottom. Everyone from Tempo Storm mostly focused up toward the top. Tempo did get some bruisers to try to delay, give them more of a presence in the mid, but Even in Death had nothing for that. 20 and Webweavers.
So I've been talking about the pressure up into the top lane consistently for Even in Death and how uncommon that is, but now it's an advantage. They've been so successful with it. That's one of the best lanes to have it down, because now mid and bottom are both very, very easy prep lanes for the Webweavers because of how easy the transitions are between the two. But more importantly, above all else, if these Webweavers go down, Even in Death can feign a boss immediately afterwards. So this is, again, a game-winning situation for Even in Death, but if they fail to capitalize on this Webweaver phase and immediately after, it suddenly goes over to Tempo.
That was a really good drag. Fury comes in after the fact, but Divine Shield is used. It's still a long cooldown to be forced. Battery is used, Arc on 2, so he's ready to siege along with this Webweaver, but Fury and the rest of Tempo Storm, along with doing a lot of damage and forcing Divine Shield, were able to defend in the mid. The bottom, though, that is where nobody else was being able to defend as much for Tempo Storm, and that's another keep down in favor of Even in Death.
Oh, power slide up on mid. The damage, Battery, he has a dimensional shift. Maybe not. He waited on to that for a long time. Either way, he keeps himself alive. The Webweaver up on bottom, though, it's going to go down, and the boss is not postured for Even in Death. So failing to completely maybe capitalize on that window, but they did get a keep on top, keep on bottom, and mid is prepped well. I was surprised at the lack of pressure they applied towards mid. That should have been at least a triple keep here for Even in Death. Suddenly, Tempo Storm has still a chance here on 2.
It seemed like the minute that Tempo Storm were able to force the Divine Shield with the Dragon Gust, that's a cooldown timer that's way in favor of Tempo Storm. It was enough to scare away Even in Death, even though they no longer had to worry about the Fly and Gust behind them, was still enough to force back Even in Death. And Tempo Storm gets the next Webweaver phase. We're approaching the late stages of this game. 20 minutes into Tomb of the Spider Queen, Tempo Storm got to bring it back right here with these Webweavers.
And so Falstad and Dahaka already going to rid of all the pressure. Nice decision-making here for Tempo. If they fail to get rid of these Giants, essentially this bottom Webweaver is useless. And they cannot waste any of their Webweavers at this point in time, but it leads to a free clear. So a bit slow transition down to bottom for Tempo, and that's a lot of free damage up on mid. The most probable lane to be successful other than top now. So Tempo Storm has to completely revert the game plan, go up towards top. Why is that a problem compared to mid? Catapults are on top, which is a really great defense tool for Even in Death. Pretty much all because of the timing of that transition towards bottom, Tempo Storm lost a Webweaver phase. That is what just happened, purely off of the transition and timing. It's not completely out. Bottom's still alive and is going to move forward, and top still stands. But again, it's a 5-man answer towards top, and bottom will die to those catapults.
The nice thing is taking down top, being able to push this wave will make sure that they have vision. Fury gets flipped into the team, but Gus has been used inside. They just want to focus on bringing down Lutano.
He got, the taunt, but he ends up dying. And now Tempo Storm, a man up. What can they make happen? That was a huge play. Lutano was the one going for the big kills there, flipping over Fury, who, by the way, didn't even take his level 20. He still can go death metal. So maybe not the best post-20 flip target.
Yeah, I think likely that had he been flipped and had he gone down, he would have taken that before he died.
It was very, very scary there. And now Tempo Storm, because of that pick, they can do exactly what we assumed Even in Death may do over the last Webweaver phase. They're going to move right on to the boss, and this should be all she wrote for Tomb of the Spider Queen. If Tempo fails to get past the keep and end the game here, though, they are close enough to Web Weavers to where maybe they can get that win condition. But let's be real here, Even in Death is miles from anything other than a full team wipe on Tempo past this boss. That is the call for Even in Death, and they cannot fail.
Yeah, it does feel like the point of no return. Even in Death have been dominating Tomb of the Spider Queen all the way up until this point. Even with the blue Web Weavers the last phase, Even in Death still cleared them out quickly. But now the boss, Garrosh, is back, looking for the pulls yet again. Can Lutano get the pull? Can Even in Death follow up in a way that they can take out Tempo Storm in Game 3 and take us on to Game 4?
Keep still the focus. It goes down. Tempo moves forward. A bit of poke on the battery. Questioning. You see them trying to wait for the misplay. Tempo, he gets dragged. He's able to make it out.
Awesome job by Fury. He was dragged along with it.
Tempo.
We'll gladly use that positioning to face mail everyone else away.
Tempo is willing to play for the next Web Weaver phase. They know that they have such a huge gem advantage, and they just removed the other win condition. But a double keep with the middle keep as weak as it is still enough for Even in Death to still claim this game for themselves. It's not out of the realm of the territory. But I mean, at this point in time, you know Even in Death's got to be wishing that that middle keep was not standing. So where do we see them get a fight? It's got to be over a turn-in for Even in Death. They have to find an area at a turn-in, find a way to catch out the members of Tempo, and they have to do it by manipulating the map, keeping that pressure. Both top and bottom have to be pushing into Tempo Storm constantly.
Mid is going to be pushed in toward Even in Death and getting that bruiser camp. Even in Death so far has been really focused on every time Tempo Storm gets a bruiser camp, clearing it up as fast as they can. So they maintain all of the vision, all of the control over both of the turn-in points and being able to rotate between them effectively. Battery gives vision. June starts to turn in, but gets stopped last second with the Psionic Storm.
Somebody is going to answer those Giants eventually on bottom, and Even in Death should be poking to try and get a gank around them if they can. That is, again, the team fight for Even in Death is not going to be given for free. Win conditions don't come around, so they need to make them. And things like that pressure on bottom where you can predict a rotation is a must-go too. Even the Dahaka anchoring, realizing that that is an easy flank for them. Because otherwise, they're begging for a boss to spawn, is essentially the decision-making. 2 minutes and 41 seconds is what Even in Death is relying on. That they can stall out this game long enough to make that happen, because mathematically 2 minutes and 30 seconds out, it is just not even possible for them to get a turn-in. It's just out of the realm of possibilities.
Well, Even in Death do have their bruisers available. They're going to get those, so that will give them an opportunity for that, and maybe an opportunity that is a lot better for them, more one that they would like a lot more, because it's around mid instead of all the way down in the bottom, where they also don't want to be giving up a turn-in for free. Tempo Storm could just abuse that, use a global, fly away, and then unless Even Death were able to catch that person, then Tempo Storm could get the next turn-in, and things are getting scary for Even in Death. This is the best chance they have. This is the only chance left they have to get a game off of Tempo Storm.
You see them wanting to use this night camp with the last keep to stand. Tempo Storm is gotta want to move past this and try and force it possible.
Fury.
Flip. He's got death metal possible. Keep in mind, every time he gets flipped, I go, "Are you quite sure, Lutano?"
Everybody else from Even in Death is the same.
Yeah.
Immediate spread out. No, thank you. We will poke. We will do damage, but we will not all converge at one.
Dimensional Shift #1 was forced to be used. Draglands on Lutano, but he's got a lot of armor, and more importantly, dodging out the spells. 2 catapults on bottom, 1 up on top. Falsad's ridding in that, and Dahaka soon to get up on bottom lane. So can Even in Death abuse the catapult pressure wave and get the poke out? They've got pretty much 30 seconds, every 30 seconds, to rely on the double catapults to draw aggro, and then use that to use Tassadar and get that poke out. It's going to work out for them. It's just, can Tempo catch them at any point? And now that they have enough gems, they're going to be the ones venturing out into the world.
There it is again. Damage,
Flight.
fly, gust, catches only how. Dimensional Shift from Battery was perfect to stop that.
Catapults are on the core. There's 3 of them through bottom. It's going to rid of the shields now. Even in Death needs to keep Tempo Storm busy in this game, and they have a chance at winning it. They're going to get the splash damage on the Cattle. The dismount is real, 77% and counting. Last catapult dead, and we round it out at 67. drag onto Battery, but he's got a Dimensional Shift. Divine Shield and Dimensional Shift used. That is worst case scenario here for Even in Death.
It was, but I think that it might have been necessary. It was so close to him falling before finally he
just
wasn't
lost Archon.
stun locked for it. He loses Archon too. That's 96 seconds until that is back. Still has Dimensional or Psionic Storms to eventually take down this keep, but there are some important cooldowns missing from Even in Death that the members of Tempo Storm may be able to abuse, especially with Epic Mount and Gust back in 10 seconds.
I talked about the bet that Even in Death put out onto the map here with 2 minutes and 30 seconds and how unlikely it was that they were going to be able to get it, and they have. They have succeeded. Top boss stands now. Tempo Storm has enough for a turn-in, so goaltending has got to be crucial. Malthel picking up the Giants. That's going to be a 15 to 20 seconds from now. Tempo has to be on bottom. Do we see Even in Death go for the goaltending hardcore aggression play, knowing those Giants could end the game, or do they go for the boss instead? Either way, they need to be proactive. Indomitable used there by Lutano to make sure the drag doesn't land. Malthel's now moving up.
Malthel's on his way up. The Giants were achieved. Fury's the one thrown to the team. Afterward, they've got a Cursed Bullet, still a stun. He hasn't died yet. And Ancestral Healing will be used just to keep him alive. Homicidal doesn't get gusted away, and a lot of members lose health. Cothenluck's the one who has been caught, and he uses timeout.
Keep in mind, Fury thought he was going to die. He selected the death metal, so there is now no option at level 20. They know what it is. Drag is going to be used. Cleanse out from June. Cothen is fine. Now Psalm and friends. Fury goes in. Three-man power slide. The mosh pit. They got 1, 2. Nice interrupt from Lutana, but it might be too late. Giants are on the core. They need to keep them busy. They cannot let them go back to base.
Yeah, the shielding's already gone. It's at 52. It flies back. Falstad trying to save the core while the rest of the team will not be allowed to get back in time to
20.
save it. Psalm is doing his best to save the core. Another rock. They can't take these down in time. 9%. It's at 9%.
They gotta go. They have to all in this. That's the only way they can do this. Redemption is going to be a huge tool. Fury's the focus. Keep in mind, death metal. They can't kill him there. No.
No. Oh. It touches two. It's Battery and Lutano left.
Oh my goodness. I think they've done it.
Homicidal Howl going into 4-man. There's a Gust still available. Psalm does not want to be the one who gets taunted in. He cannot go down. He needs the Gust.
He needs the Gust. Battery needs to proc the Archon reset. Homicidal's the focus. He gets into the Frayed. How goes down. Redemption is there. The shielding's alive. Isolation onto Battery. Gilly. The Tempo Storm is pushing them off the core. Even a Death's not confident to move in.
They're going to be able to defend this. They find How as he comes back. There is the Gust pushing them back in. Psalm is ready to end this game. He wants to end this series, but he gets caught. He gets taken out. Tassadar and Falstad both go down. There's still no ETC, so it's a 2-for-1 trade.
And now it's just about buying time for How. There's no way he's making it out of here. He eventually will drop. No redemption
Someone
left.
has to go back immediately. This center.
Oh, baby.
All right, so what do we know
We have to go top
this?
lane. We have to go top lane 100% for Tempo Storm from this point on in this game. They have essentially an even death timers with the Tassadar. So it's a 4 versus 3 up until that spawn. Falstad has the flight, so it's still a man advantage at all stages of the siege. But you cannot leave that half of the map. There is no global, and there's only one way that Even in Death can make it to that side of the map without the vision. If boss is up, that is a huge play, and it could be the one that ends the game, but it leaves a lot of time for the members of Even in Death to go to core.
It gives so much time for Even in Death, and when Hal comes back, he has Divine Shield to try to help with the defense of the core too. This is a boss, and it's a very late game boss. We're 30 minutes into Tomb of the Spider Queen. They're just going to run across again.
They're relying on Falstad's Gust alone to be able to peel the 3 members off the court. It is a Malthale who does essentially no damage.
Oh, ETC's back.
Lutano, let's see. The boss is still being focused. Rhaegar's the last man on it.
Dahaka's coming in too.
He's got the channel. June will be able to get this brilliant play from Tempo Storm. Oh, man. They're doing almost everything here. I thought the boss was going to be it, but they hold off.
They're not going with boss. They don't have a turn-in behind this. Even in Death, they're just jumping on the boss quickly. Nobody was here with this.
What?
Tempo Storm's core is at 9%!
And the catapults can end the game through mid if they get just by enough time. Into the fray. Falstad flight! The Gust! The Mosh! Divine Shield onto 1.
There is the 2, though, that are falling so fast. Catapult gets in, making sure that nobody gets away from this mosh pit. Nobody gets away from Tempo Storm. 2 are down. Lutano taunts everyone away from going along with the boss. The boss is almost down, but this is 31 minutes in. This is bringing down the core of Even in Death. It is a 31-minute game in Game 3 of the series, but Tempo Storm are the ones to close it out.
Tempo Storm here on the back foot from almost turn-in number 1, but 31 minutes of absolute brilliant decision-making keeps them in it. I'll be honest, I lost out about 4 different times there for Tempo Storm, and every time they proved me wrong. Very impressive. I cannot give them enough credit. Whoever's call it was to leave June as the boss capturer was, in fact, that was just could not have been done better.
Yeah, that was awesome for Tempo Storm that they were able to make that comeback happen. That has to feel really, really good. Yes, they got behind in that game, but to prove themselves that even when they get behind on Tomb of the Spider Queen, they can make the right decisions to get back into it and then win against Even in Death. When Even in Death were doing so many things well in that early game, they had a fantastic early Tomb of the Spider Queen game.
Absolutely. If I'm Tempo Storm, I mean, other than obviously finding yourself maybe draft-wise or position-wise into that, but if we were going to go back and be like, this is the moment that, you know, pat yourselves on the back, I'd be looking at game number 3 without a doubt. That entire remainder, the last 10 minutes was just, this is Even in Death as long as they break past this one window, and they did every single time. And Tempo did what would be just an unacceptable level of recovery constantly over and over and over again. And it was just amazing. I do feel, I mean, Even in Death maybe failed to push the envelope at certain sections, but not enough for me to be like, come on, Even in Death. It was very much more Tempo's defense than it was the lack of pressure of Even in Death.
Yeah, in the shot calling, the amazing decision making, that is what we can rely on from Tempo Storm because of the experience that this team has, not only as members of the professional Heroes of the Storm community, but as a team. This long-standing roster has the trust in each other to be able to make those kinds of calls, and that beautiful decision making is just a testament to that kind of experience that these players have in Heroes of the Storm. It was an awesome Game 3 between Even in Death and Tempo Storm, but Tempo gets a 3-0 victory, and that sets them up really well for the final week of Part 2 before playoffs. We'll know pretty soon how they're sitting in standings, but it's really important to them that at least they stay out of the 5th and 6th positions because that is one less series that they have to play in playoffs.
I'm just really sad because I was trying to look up if Cawthonluck, how many stacks he ended up with,
He ended up with the Echo. I saw the Echo.
Yeah, we got the Echo. I just want to know how many in total, right? Because let's be real. If you were to draw a pit, like, I mean, you got a 31-minute game on Tomb of the Spider Queen. What do you end up with, right? I think just to be a gauge of the new Chromium, but sadly can't look at it here at the end of the game. He did get past 80, so.
He got the Echo, and it was pretty close to the end of the game, so I would say it's like 80 to 90.
80, 90, right?
Range.
Okay, so, you know, if it takes 30 minutes to get to the 80, 90 range, you know, questionable in terms of the value.
Right, but slow early game for him too. He didn't have a ton of people going back and forth. He wasn't sitting in a 4-man lane, so it is hard to gauge for the Chromie where she is going to fit in. Where how important is it that you make sure that you are getting to the 80? Like, is 80 the top of where you have to be to know that you're successful?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't quite know yet, but the one thing that I think is really cool about what this is going to do competitively moving forward is if she is a big enough problem, you know, at the stacking of the queue, and it is, you know, she is meta enough to be picked, but also, you know, big enough problem to attend to in terms of playstyle, it's going to be this really cool situation where you see picks and drafts based on minimizing the laning situation for Chromie. The same way Chromie is picked to minimize the laning situation of Siege compositions, it will be flipped against her. It's actually a really cool kind of interaction since that nerf, or at least rework into her. I don't know. It's kind of hard to call it a nerf because it, in theory, can be better than any other version, but I don't know. She doesn't have the immediate value, so I view that as a nerf.
Well, we're waiting on Cawthonluck, but while we're doing that, there's a whole different mage that we haven't really gotten to talk a lot about today because next week, Kel'Thuzad becomes available. I told KO this yesterday, but when I talked to K1 Pro about Kel'Thuzad, he was like, this hero was made for me.
Yes, I hope it was. I hope it was made for every North American player because he is, you know, I'm going to be honest, he's a bit of a guilty pleasure right now for myself. I absolutely adore the chain one-shot dream, and I will proceed to do it as many times as you let me. It is a lot of fun to be able to play the hero. His playstyle, his trade-offs, everything about him is a lot of fun. So I'm excited to see what he makes unfold here in North America, or if he even shows up.
Yeah, I started out with some frustration as I was getting to know the hero myself, but by the end of this week of playing him, I was having a lot of fun. I'm looking forward to getting some more Kel'Thuzad games in with my friends.
Nothing more satisfying than playing against Leorix is Kel'Thuz. Legitimate, just...
You mean Kel'Thuzad?
No, Kel'Thuzad, yeah, sorry. Already making the mistake here. Just because between the Glacial Spike and the Wraithwalk, every time you're just like, oh, please Wraithwalk, because I'm going to bring you right on back home. And we're just going to go ahead and say, good night, my sweet prince. Go back into Ghost Form. We'll see you later on.
Why you got to pick on Leorics? Maybe that's why we didn't have that many Leorics in an HGC this weekend. You're being a bully to all of them.
I mean, seriously, think about the theory crafting. It is like a direct counter to all Leos wanting to escape. Between Glacial and then the max range, it's the Stitches, and you've got it every
Yeah, but you
single
get
time.
hit by Ominous Wraith, all of a sudden you're doing like no damage.
Feels bad, man.
Yeah. Maybe we'll get more Leo Kel'Thuzad goodness in NA next week. Let's check in with Luck. He's now here joining us for the winner's interview. Hey, buddy, congratulations. How are you guys feeling, especially after that miracle comeback Game 3?
That was pretty exciting. I'm also excited because my mic attachment broke, so I'm going full NA mic here and just holding this up with my hand during the interview. So let's do this.
Oh, well, I really appreciate you doing everything you need to do to join us here for the interview today. You guys had a 3-0 victory. We know that things have been inconsistent, working to get back the consistency before playoffs. How are you guys feeling as a team now after this week of practice and then this series?
It's definitely a work in progress. I think we've seen over the last few weeks, we've tried a lot of iterations to try to find our style again. We seem to kind of lost what we want to do as a team. We've had a really rough phase too. So week to week, there's been a lot of inconsistency, and I think we're starting to get back on track as to how we want to do our setups and the styles we want to play. But of course, the big tests are yet to come.
Well, that's great to hear. There's a lot of Tempo Storm fans, myself included, so it's great to hear you guys are getting all of that fixed and ready for playoffs. Dread?
Cawthon, I just wanted to know a little bit, because talking about these changes and some of the adjustments you guys have made, we landed here today with both Fury and Cattle still kind of swapping back and forth. I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that and if that's still going to be in flux or, just kind of what's going on.
I think we have, for the most part, things figured out as to how we want to peak 2 weeks from now. Basically, the whole goal right now is to work on being the best, strongest team we can be 2 weeks from now. And so a lot of the things we're trying out in scrims and even some of these games are to help us achieve that goal, since right now there's a huge variance in the 3rd through 6th teams. The top 2 have been dominant. They deserve their spots, absolutely. And, I mean, the playoffs are anybody's match at this point, right? Like, both us, Space Station, GFE have had rough phase 2s, and Superstars has been coming up strong. So, I mean, everybody's just putting forward their best work to try to be as strong as they can 2 weeks from now.
Well, I can tell you we very much look forward to see what the peaked version of Tempo Storm in the playoff looks like.
I hope you do see it.
We do too. You have one final series of Part 2 before those playoffs, and that'll be versus Team Freedom. Any thoughts on how that matchup is going to go for you guys?
That match might end up being somewhat of a barometer for us to see how far we've come with the things we're trying. Most likely, we'll also be using that as use it for, I guess, testing purposes to see if we're on the right track to get to where we need to be. And the ultimate goal, of course, is to be ready for the playoffs. But if we're able to do well against Team Freedom, I think that'll be a big step in the right direction for us. So we'll still be coming out swinging, trying to win for sure.
Well, thank you for a look into the mindset of Tempo Storm. It's really exciting to hear that you guys are still working toward those playoffs. Congratulations again on your victory, and the floor is yours for shoutouts.
All right. Big time shout out to NVIDIA. Hooked a lot of us up. We've got some much better graphics cards going into the next 2 weeks. Shout out to Twitch, Secret Lab, Massdrop, Skytech Gaming, and to Tempo Storm themselves for having patience for us to figure things out and get it together and put forward a strong performance for everybody.
Awesome. Thanks again, Luck. Congrats. Good luck next week.
Thank you.
3-0 for Tempo Storm, but man, that last game was exciting and fun. I loved it. 30 minutes of Tomb, but it was so awesome to see Even in Death come in, be able to go past just a lead, and then try to transition that, but then Tempo Storm do everything they needed to do to come back in the game.
I'm going to be honest, Lutano's impressing me on the front lines.
2 thumbs up for me.
It's a really rough role to learn. Casanova admitted some of the difficulties. I will say that any player who's willing to move from a ranged assassin role to either warrior or support and make a pretty fast transition to it, I'm beyond impressed. The thought process has to change completely. Your goal is to be able to enable your team. There is a lot to go into it. And Lutano, he's been willing to make that transition and, more importantly, look good in the process.
And the team to believe in him when they're doing that so close to the Crucible is very impressive too
Yeah.
from Even and Death. As we're closing things out, let's take a look at the top 3 cheered for teams in North America. We've got Roll 20, Gale Force, and Tempo Storm.